Next on WCCO Mornings Fighting Fraud, we will tell you about the 3 bills that are being discussed in the House today.
Then a free cruise trip takes an expensive turn. Getting sick at sea is costing them tens of thousands of dollars.
Falling temperatures mean rising risks, the one thing that is causing more deadly fires throughout Minnesota.
And a group that honors our fallen heroes needs your help. Wet weather destroyed thousands of flags at Fort Snelling National Cemetery last year. How a nonprofit is working to replace them and how you can get involved. Good morning. Welcome to WCCO Mornings. We're streaming live right here on CBS News Minnesota. I'm AJ Hilton.
And I'm Heather Brown. Thanks so much for being on the stream with us today. We do want to get straight to your top headlines. Fighting fraud. That will be front and center for lawmakers at the Minnesota State Capitol today. Yeah,
they'll be taking up a trio of GOP-backed bills. These are aimed at cracking down on criminals stealing hundreds of millions of your taxpayer dollars.
Our Pauline Lee is at the live desk this morning with a closer look at what these bills are all about.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, we first told you about these proposals weeks ago, but now that the House is actually in order, a proper committee can hear them. So here's a refresher on how lawmakers are hoping to protect your taxpayer dollars. One of the bills would create stricter reporting requirements if a state agency employee suspects fraud. Another proposal would establish a new annual report from the Office of Legislative Auditor that's detailing if agencies have followed the OLA's recommendations to boost internal controls to help prevent the fraud. Third proposal would boost protections for whistleblowers who expose the fraud. Now, the House State Government Committee is set to take up these bills about an hour from now at 8:15 this morning. Later this afternoon at about 12:30, a Senate panel will hear a bipartisan proposal to establish a new Office of Inspector General. That's to be a watchdog for state agencies. And then also happening at 12:30, the Senate GOP leaders are expected to share more details about their package of proposals to help tackle this issue. So a busy day at the Capitol. We'll be following it all.
Certainly is a very busy day. Pauline Lee, we appreciate that update. A free cruise turned into a financial nightmare at sea for a Minnesota man and his girlfriend. This is a story you got to hear for yourself. Mike Cameron and his girlfriend, they won this free cruise. They set sail for a week on a Norwegian cruise line. Well, shortly after into the week, Mike got sick. He had to go to the ship's medical bay. He says they diagnosed him with the flu. So he says he got oxygen, felt better. He wanted to return to his room. He says the medical staff kept him in their care for 62 hours. They gave him a bill at the end of the cruise of more than $47,000, $47,638.79. He says they had traveler's insurance, but it only covers a fraction of it. He says his primary insurance does not look like it'll cover the care in international waters.
We thought we were covered. We thought we did the right things. You know, we took the traveler's insurance and paid for it and thought we were covering ourselves, but apparently not enough.
What would you do? Yikes. Well, in a statement, Norwegian Cruise Line told WCCO that Mike, quote, received appropriate treatment for his condition and that resulting expenses have been reviewed by our internal team. Now, Mike's daughter has set up a GoFundMe to try to raise money to pay for that $47,000 bill.
We do have breaking news this morning. A mobile home badly burnt in a fire at a mobile home park in Corcoran. We do have video from earlier this morning. This is a scene at Maple Hill Road at the Maple Hill Estates. Now, we are still working to learn the extent of any damage, whether anyone was hurt or displaced. We'll bring you that information just as soon as we get it.
You know, in the winter months, we know finding heat, it can bring its own danger. In just the past couple of days, 4 people have died in house fires right here in Minnesota.
David Schumann investigated and he found one device that is causing fire risks to rise as the temperatures drop.
Sounded like it was ammunition.
A neighbor heard loud noises like gunshots, he said, then went outside to find this.
It was really scary. I kind of felt like the entire neighborhood might go up in flames. I was definitely happy to see that the fire department was here.
2 people died in this fire Sunday night in Pine City, about an hour north of the cities. The Pine County Sheriff's Office is investigating the cause. Earlier in the day, another tragic fire in St. Paul. The fire department says a man and his friend living in this garage died. Investigators think a space heater tipped over and sparked the flames.
It's very sad because I just know that 2 people passed away I know one of the son of the lady, he's sleeping on the garage.
It was a very unfortunate day yesterday with fires.
State fire officials say improper heating is a leading cause of winter fires.
We have frigid temperatures all week, and so everyone is going to be thinking of how do I stay warm where I live? Just give pause and think like, where is that space heater? Where is my furnace? What condition are these things in? If you have a fireplace, what's stored around your fireplace?
For space heaters, the best things to do are plug it into the wall and leave it on a hard surface. Give it at least 3 feet of space and don't leave it on when you're not at home.
Up to this point in the year, our investigators have seen about that 25% increase in a number of fires that they've responded to. It is a busier winter.
David Schumann, WCCO News.
Well, let's go ahead and check in with next weather meteorologist Joseph Dames, because Joseph, we're just talking about fire dangers and space heaters, and it's so important that people do find safe ways to stay warm on a day like today.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough. I get it. I know space heaters do a really good job. You want to just do what you can to stay warm, and so you just have to be very cautious on these type of days. And I know it's a tough one. If you're going to be outside for even a little bit this morning, you really need to be bundling up. We have a cold weather advisory. All these counties right here out to the west, all the way out to areas like Lockheed Parle County, extending all the way up to Mille Lacs County, Beltrami County, and all the way over to the east. We're pretty much the only spot right here I was counting. There's 19 counties down to the south and southeast that do not have a cold weather advisory, but it's still going to be sub-zero, and it's still going to be maybe even close to about 20 to 24 degrees below zero, which is right there on the fringe of that cold weather advisory. Frostbite 10 to 30 minutes down to the southeast, 10 minutes or less for some of these locations up north and out to the west. Right now it's 8 below in the Twin Cities, 16 below for St. Cloud, and 20 below coming out of Alexandria. It feels colder than that. It feels like 23 below here in the Twin Cities. And as I mentioned, that advisory requirement is 25 below, so we're right there on the fringe, okay? 34 below right now, it feels like in St. Cloud. As I take you through the weather model, it still pushes us probably into the double digits for the feels like temperature this afternoon. So not much of an improvement at all. All right, high pressure up to the north of us, and we're leaving us with some pretty nice sunny skies here this morning. Snow will develop down to the southwest. That will be more of a problem tomorrow for portions of the state. Around here, we're pretty quiet as we kind of work through midweek. Day planner this afternoon does include some sunshine, but it also includes some increasing cloud coverage by this afternoon. Highs up north about 2 degrees, highs here about 3. And that's pretty much it. Not much going on there. All right, our big snow event this month was Saturday at 3.3 inches at the airport. I have another chance for maybe some more snow Friday night into Saturday. Will we see that same total? Will we be on the lower side? We'll discuss that coming up at 7:30.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joseph. Let's take a look now at your next drive. Things looking really good out there on the roads. Lots of green. MnDOT not reporting any crashes right now. I'm going to take you out to our friends in White Bear. Noticing how light it is right now. Official sunrise not just 10 minutes away, but it feels pretty good. Joseph telling us, what did you say, Joseph, 26 days or 28 days till?
26.
26 days
March
till
9th.
daylight savings.
Not like Heather's counting it all.
I'm just saying, looking pretty light out there today.
Well, unfortunately, wet weather destroyed an iconic scene at Fort Snelling National Cemetery last Memorial Day. And now a nonprofit group is trying to replace thousands of gravesite flags before Memorial Day weekend. Flags for Fort Snelling has been displaying American flags at grave sites for a decade now, and they've grown quickly from 3,700 flags in their first year to nearly 200,000 last year. So now last Memorial Day, you may remember this, remember the weekend rain? It put a damper on their yearly tribute. And because the flags did not have time to dry out, you just saw they became moldy. The group says 50,000 flags were destroyed, and now they're asking for the public's help to replace them.
Never want to put a molded flag out to honor and remember somebody. The importance of being able to still remember and honor those that have made the ultimate sacrifice, essentially, that's not lost.
The nonprofit runs on donations, and with the flags costing about $1 a piece, they want to raise $50,000 before May. If you would like to help or donate, you can visit their website, flagsforfortsnelling.com.
So fewer than 1% of the 16.5 million Americans who served during World War II, they are still with us today.
And as Susan Elizabeth Littlefield shows us, yesterday marked a huge and happy milestone for one of those veterans right here in Minnesota.
This Excelsior home is full of memories, but unlike many photos from this era, the subject is here to explain.
I enlisted in the Navy when I was 17, so...
A few years before that, in 1925, Ralph Peebles was born in Minneapolis. From a young age, he embraced the lifestyle and the lakes.
A big outdoorsman. He loved to canoe. He loved to hike. He loved to be outside.
So he proudly took on the adventures of World War II, becoming a pilot of planes known as flying boats.
And you liked it?
Liked it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure. No, I liked airplanes from the time I was a little kid.
He took a quick detour into broadcasting at WCCO.
When I got out of the Navy, I went to work for them.
Ralph realized he was less interested in what was on the air and wanted to be up in the air, taking several corporate flying jobs, like this one with Honeywell.
Well, I've been in every country in the world and in every province in China.
A hunger for adventure he passed on.
That's what he taught me. It's like, what do you have to fear? Nothing. And, you know, you die, so what? You're doing something you like.
But Ralph kept living and living. This marks his 100th birthday. Family came from all over, including his baby sister, who's 91.
You know, when you look at him 100,
Yeah.
what are you most proud of?
I mean, he's been what they call a stand-up guy, but also very quietly, very kind and thoughtful.
A man who's never been afraid of a risk, which has come with many rewards.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
In Excelsior, Susan Elizabeth Littlefield, WCCO News.
So the Minnesota Timberwolves team ownership now set to change hands.
The deal will go before the Board of Governors for approval. If they have the financing, this should be a done deal. This transaction, it's been less than harmonious. Glenn Taylor, he extended deadlines for payments. The ruling was 2-1 in favor of Mark Laurie and Alex Rodriguez, with 3 area judges presiding. If this is the end for Taylor, he told our Mike Max recently he understands his legacy.
Mostly what people say to me, Glenn, we really appreciate that you're the guy that saved the Timberwolves for Minnesota. And that won't change. I think people will still look at it as that Glenn Taylor was the guy who saved them for Minnesota. And even though I don't have all the ownership anymore, I still think that they'll understand that's why the Timberwolves are here.
Yeah, it's 30 years later.
Yeah.
Still here and hopefully here for many more years to come.
We'll have to wait and see what the Board of Governors decides. Still to come, a coin you find everywhere could soon be going away.
What you need to know about this discussion to end the penny. Does it make sense? Shayla?
Well, a coffee shop right here in St. Paul is building community one cup at a time. We'll talk about how and how they're making an impact for women and youth. Plus, how you can enjoy a Mike night here, too, after the break.
Hey, welcome back. Let's focus on your next drive this morning. Want to take you over to St. Paul. Right now, there's a viewpoint from 35E and Maryland Avenue. You can see that it is smooth sailing. Matter of fact, take a look at the traffic map. We are not following any major problems, no slowdowns, nothing that's going to get in your way. Just make sure you bundle up this morning, and you may want to start your car a little early because it is very, very cold outside. Want to make sure you don't have any problems, but the roads are in good shape. Shouldn't have any issues. So we're celebrating Black History Month in the month of February, and we are highlighting some of the businesses in the metro as well. One of them is Flavor Cafe over in St. Paul. The cafe is mentoring and developing young people with work experience, community, and culture. It's where we find our Shayla Reeves there for us, talking with the owner this morning. Shayla, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, AJ. And this is such an experience for kids to not only learn and connect and find out things that they would want to learn on a first job to take to other jobs, but it's also a place where people can build connection and relationship and enjoy that cup of coffee. I'm here with Shawnee Grigsby, the owner of Flavor Cafe. We're waking up right here at this intersection right now. In just a few minutes, the doors are going to open. What do you feel when you see your vision come to life?
I would say the first thing I feel is joy when I see my vision come to life, and just like affirmation that I'm on the right path and I've made, some good decisions along the way. So, yeah.
And you've been in business now for a couple of years, but what's so neat when people come in here, the names of the items on the menu, the name of Flavor Cafe, they're leaning on these pop culture references and parts of childhood and youth that connected with you.
Yeah, I would say the thing that I feel like draws a lot of people in is one, the name and the things that we represent, but also we're one of the very few Black-owned community shops here in the community. So I think that's also a thing that draws community in, but also just seeing themselves reflected in the names of the things on the menu, the books on the shelves. Even some of our local artists have some of their books and artwork that they sell in the space. And so it's all really ingrained in community, and that's what Flavor is all about. That's what Shawnee's all about. And so I think that's also another big factor that draws people into this space.
And you mentor and coach young people to make sure that they're prepared not only to work for you, but beyond here. And then on top of that, you serve as a space for people in the community to connect with each other. You can do that through the open mic nights?
Yeah.
Tell me about
so
that.
Every Thursday we host an open mic in partnership with True Art Speaks. And the founder of that organization is Tish Jones, and they've been operating for over 10 years here in the Metro, specifically here in St. Paul. And so Flavor Cafe is now the new home of the Reverb Open Mic, and we do that every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. And this Thursday we have a featured artist by the name of Denez Smith, which I'm sure a lot of folks who may be watching this have heard about at home. And it's free and open to the public from 6 to 8 p.m. every Thursday. And every first Thursday we do have a DJ that comes and does a set with us as well. And I wanted to make sure that open mic and poetry and different forms of art were represented in this space, because it's also a part of how I express myself as a young person. And so all of the aspects of who I am as a person, you can find pieces of that here in this space.
You can find pieces of that here, and you've created a place of connection by taking your idea, making it real, and people can come here and experience in real time those relationships that are happening because you have the courage to open Flavor.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I'll send it back to you, AJ and Heather.
All right, sounds like a plan, Shayla. We appreciate that update. Pressing pause on pennies. This is a move that could save the United States millions of dollars, but could it also cost you more? Jeff Wagner and photojournalist Nick Luneman have more.
I've been doing this over 50 years, involved in lots of different coins, both U.S., world coins, currency.
Gary Adkins is what's known as a professional numismatist. He makes a living buying and selling coins.
Early large pennies, you can see.
One most commonly collected just happens to be the one with the least financial value.
Unfortunately, we get way too many pennies. Everybody has probably a jar at home or a dresser drawer where they just take the pennies out of their pocket, they pitch it into the drawer.
Ah, the penny, the little zinc coin that finds its way to the bottom of the washer more than it does the cash register, which explains why it may soon be a thing of the past.
There's a reason why there's take a penny, leave a penny things at cash registers and all the convenience stores, that it just doesn't have the same buying power as it used to.
On Sunday, President Trump announced in a Truth Social post that he has instructed his Secretary of Treasury to stop producing new pennies, citing the wasteful spending to produce the coin. So What does that mean?
If you were to go to the store, it means that you can't see prices at 99 cents anymore, that either they're going to round up or things are going to be priced differently. And those might have some small impacts on people.
So if something was 3 cents, it'll now be 5 cents. Something that's 5 cents or 6 cents or 7 cents now gets rounded up to 10 cents. So in a way, it's inflationary.
Even with that rounding up, most people won't feel that when they go to the grocery store necessarily.
With photojournalist Nick Luneman.
It's still a little bit extra money, and it's always tight for everybody right now.
Jeff Wagner, WCCO News.
Now, the U.S. Mint reported losing more than $85 million in the 2024 fiscal year on the pennies it produced. It also loses money on the nickel. Still to come this morning, going to update you on today's frigid weather, plus more of this morning's top headlines. And a little bit later, the new charges Senator Nicole Mitchell is facing after being accused of breaking into her stepmother's home. Plus, how the state could help new parents afford baby products. That could be a game changer.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm AJ Hilton. We'll check in with Joseph Dames, who has your next weather forecast in just a second. Let's get you caught up on what's happening with the Minnesota legislature, because GOP and DFL lawmakers are both supporting a new bill to enforce a cell phone ban at Minnesota schools. The Senate Education Committee heard testimony yesterday on a bill that would ban all cell phones on school grounds for grades K through 8. It would also ban phones in the classroom for high school students. There would be some exceptions for students with special needs. The Senate Education Committee will hold another hearing that is scheduled to come up tomorrow. As far as your next drive is concerned, take a look at the traffic map on this Tuesday morning. We are not following any significant crashes or anything that's really going to slow you down. The typical spots we see typically look like this. Typical traffic along 494 and 35W over in Bloomington, Richfield area through the crosstown. Smooth sailing, Joseph, but it is very, very cold outside.
It's very, very cold. It's also very, very bright this morning. I mean, look at this sunrise coming through. So enjoy that. Clouds will increase as we get into the afternoon. 9 below in the Twin Cities. It is a cold one. It feels like 21 below. If you have to spend some time outside this morning, make sure you're really prepared for this cold air. Highs today reaching about 3 degrees in the Twin Cities, Glencoe at 4, and a few of you probably won't even make it out of the negatives this morning. All right, coming up at 7:30 at CBS News Minnesota, I'll break down our next chances for some snowfall. May arrive on Valentine's Day. We'll discuss that coming up.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Next on WCCO Mornings, cuts to medical research on hold for now. The lawsuit from several states, including Minnesota, and the impact those cuts could have.
And the new bill getting bipartisan support to ban phones from your kids in schools.
Tariff troubles, how President Trump's orders on steel and platinum could impact your bottom line.
And an Arctic blast has taken a hold of Minnesota, bringing in that bitter cold. We got next weather meteorologist Joseph Dames breaking down the multiple chances for snow that we might have in the coming days.
Happy Tuesday, friends. Thank you for joining us. I'm AJ Hilton.
And I'm Heather Brown. Appreciate you being on the stream with us. Let's get straight to your top headlines.
Let's start with cuts. $2 billion in federal funding for medical research is on hold, at least for now.
Now, that is after attorneys general from 22 states, including Minnesota and Wisconsin, sued the Trump administration. Our Pauline Lee at the live desk this morning with a closer look at the impact that those cuts could have on us here in Minnesota.
And it could be a huge impact because this is the type of funding that leads to scientific breakthroughs like treatments for all kinds of cancer research and the development of the MRI. A number of institutions in the state would actually be impacted, and that includes the University of Minnesota. So you're probably thinking, show me the numbers. Here you go. 2023, which is the last year the data was publicly available, U of M Medical School received more than $296 million in NIH awards. That's the 24th highest total in the nation. So of that money, 26.7%, or about $80 million, went to indirect costs. So that's for things like facility funding and administrative expenses. Under this new directive from the NIH, it would cap the amount for funding for those indirect costs at 15%. So take that $80 million and cut it by almost half. In a statement to the U community, President Rebecca Cunningham warned of the serious consequences these cuts could have, saying the federal government's recent notice calling a 15% indirect cost rate on all new awards from the National Institutes of Health is a direct attack on our ability to advance the university's public service mission, and it would create fear and uncertainty across our community. Not just the U of M that would be impacted, the Mayo Clinic also gets NIH grant funding, and so does the Hennepin Healthcare Research Institute. The NIH has said, as a whole, these cuts would save the federal government more than $400 billion a year. Now, the next hearing for this lawsuit set for February 21st. We'll be following this closely, guys.
Yeah, just so much uncertainty right now at the University of Minnesota and universities across the country right now.
And Mayo and Hennepin Healthcare, too. Yeah. All right, Pauline, thank you.
Minnesota lawmakers are considering a ban that would remove all cell phones from all schools, public schools in the state.
So the Senate proposal would ban the phones on school grounds for kids who K through 8th. It would also ban phones for high school students in the classroom. Esme Murphy was at the first hearing for the bill.
There is mounting evidence that cell phones are taking a serious toll on students' ability to focus in the classroom and their overall mental health.
DFL Senator Alice Mann went around the state holding listening roundtables with students.
We heard stories of kids taking pictures of tests, taking and sending pictures of one another without consent, and sending naked pictures to classmates in group chats.
The senator told the Senate Education Committee one exchange really shocked her.
In one district, when we asked if kids had ever seen a naked picture of a random classmate, the majority of the kids that were at the round table shrugged and said, yeah, like it was no big deal, as our jaws hit the floor.
The proposal to ban cell phones has broad support. DFL Senator Mann, who represents Bloomington and Edina, and GOP Senator Jordan Rasmussen of Fergus Falls are co-sponsors.
For me, it's about making sure that students are able to focus on learning and that we try to mitigate the negative impacts of screen overuse and misuse in the classroom.
Rasmussen says parents and teachers are worried about their kids' education.
We are concerned about the declining test scores that we see across the state, and so we're open to any option available to try to get those test scores up.
Any cell phone ban the legislature passes this year would override the bill that was passed last year, which calls on all Minnesota school districts to enact some kind of cell phone policy by this spring. With photojournalist Mike Dernberger, Esme Murphy, WCCO News, the Capitol.
Of course, there's still many more steps before this bill could become law. The proposed cell phone ban would have exceptions for children with disabilities and other special circumstances.
Let's stay at the Capitol because one of the GOP's top priorities in the Minnesota House is cutting services for undocumented immigrants.
The bill lawmakers are discussing would prohibit them from being on Minnesota Care. It would also keep them from participating in the North Star Promise program that provides free college tuition for low-income families.
And staying with the GOP-controlled House, a taxes committee is meeting today to help make baby products cheaper for Minnesotans.
So they want to expand which baby products are exempt from sales taxes. Right now, it's just diapers, breast pumps, and pacifiers, but they're talking about adding everyday items like baby wipes, cribs, changing tables, strollers, and car seats.
That could be a game changer for a lot of families. President Donald Trump has set new tariffs on metal imports into the United States.
It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions, and that's all countries, no matter where it comes from.
So he made that statement just moments after he signed the new executive order last night. That 25% tax will specifically target steel and aluminum imports, and that could drive up prices for things you buy, things like cars.
Down the line, we are going to see that tariffs will impact consumers as we essentially have to pay the cost of those taxes that those companies or those importers are paying.
While Minnesota factories could also feel the increased cost, the tariffs could help some Minnesota mining companies. Meanwhile, retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods are already starting to kick in. New overnight, the European Union, the EU, said the U.S. tariffs, quote, will not go unanswered. And China has placed a tax of up to 15% on coal, liquefied natural gas, and crude oil.
Trump administration also facing mounting legal pressure over Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency's plans to slash government spending. A federal employees union is suing to block the dismantling of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and access to their files by Musk's agency. Meanwhile, a judge in Boston has extended the pause on the government's deferred resignations buyout program for federal workers until he reaches a verdict.
New this morning, the Justice Department is directing prosecutors to drop federal corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Now, last year, Adams pleaded not guilty to receiving benefits like trips from Turkish leaders and pressuring the fire department to grant permits to those leaders in exchange. Now, he was supposed to go on trial this spring as the first prosecution case brought against the sitting mayor in NYC. The DOJ, I should say, says this case should be dropped because of the publicity and because the case is hurting efforts to obey the president's recent immigration orders. Just last month, attorneys described Adams' efforts to have the case dropped as evidence of his guilt.
It is now 7:38, and you can see lots of sunshine out there at our look at downtown Minneapolis here. And often, Joseph, lots of sunshine means that really cold weather, and that's exactly what it means this morning.
It sure does. Yeah, cold and dry. So we don't have much going on above our heads for today. And it is going to be very cold at the surface. The snowfall from the weekend is going to help out much. It's just acting almost as ice in a cooler for us. So it's just keeping things very, very cold at the surface. Some of these temperatures this morning, guys, it's very, very cold. You can see Denny and Sandy are coming in at 21 below. We have Duke and Trimbell coming in at 18 below this morning. And over in Delano, it's 16 below. A lot of locations are going to be feeling air temperatures at that mark, but also wind chill and feels like temperatures about 35 to maybe even 40 below. All right, that's Alexandria. That's areas like Bemidji, even Marshall there. Now, as we look at this chart, if you take it into the afternoon, Twin Cities metro area, about 2 p.m., it's going to be more like 10 below, all right? We get some improvements to the wind chills as we go into our Wednesday. It's not much of one, though. I still think most of the day on Wednesday is going to feel like it is at 0 or maybe 5 below. But then we plummet again Thursday morning, all right? I mentioned this morning, yes, it's cold, about 20 to 30 below, but I do think Thursday morning we're going to take it even one step further, and we may see about 30 to 40 below by Thursday morning. We have a big winter storm cutting through Kentucky, West Virginia, areas of Virginia in general. We have southern portions of Indiana, Ohio, right here. You can see that. What's going on with this section right here, though, these are winter storm alerts preparing for tomorrow. They're getting everybody ready in Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois for a big snowstorm. That snowstorm will clip the southeast corner of the state. Overall, though, our snow chances are pretty low as we go through the week. All right, so there's our odds for snow, all right? Overall, it's going to be on the low side. Wednesday, I do believe that system will clip the southeast corner of the state, but then we have a system that's going to arrive on Friday, and that one may bring in some measurable snowfall for us. We'll get to that forecast here in just 1 second. Through our Tuesday, sunshine, temperatures warm up to about 3 degrees, a couple clouds down south, more sunshine to the north. I think today's just going to be a cold, bright day, as I mentioned. Wednesday comes along, and we start pulling in some of that moisture from that system to the south, but notice that it really only gets about maybe the bottom 15 counties to the southeast, portions of Wisconsin as well. It clears out by the time we get to the afternoon. So if you have to travel down to Rochester, if you're going to be in some of those locations along the bluffs of Mississippi, Winona, you may pick up about an inch and a half of snowfall with the event tomorrow. Clears out. Wednesday night is going to be a cold one. As we go into Thursday morning, as I mentioned, I think temperatures could be about, maybe 10 below with wind chills about 30 below. Thursday morning will probably be the worst morning as far as temperatures go. So here's that snowfall forecast for Wednesday. I just want to give you a general idea of where it's going to hit. It may clip that southeast corner of Dakota County. If it does, it'd probably be just like a trace or just a couple flurries out there. Friday comes along for Valentine's Day. We do have a chance for some snow showers in the evening time. This event on Friday could maybe bring in about a half an inch to an inch around here. If you have reservations, you have to do some driving Friday night, I'd be ready for maybe some slick conditions on the roads. Saturday 18, heading into the weekend, back to the cold air. I don't see a change in the pattern for the next probably 10 plus days. I would expect temperatures to be cold as we kind of work through the midsection of February here.
Excuse me, Joseph. Let's take a look now.
I cough at that forecast too.
Timing there, yes. Let's take a look now at your next drive. Starting to get things a little busy. It's pretty typical for a Tuesday morning. Do have a couple of minor things out there on the road. Let's take you out to Fridley. So this is a 694. It's actually 694 westbound. It's right at East River Road. Can't see it, but it's a stalled vehicle, and you can see, though, a lot of sun and a lot of cars moving very slowly through that area. So if you're making your way westbound, hopefully you can get that stalled vehicle out of the way there in Fridley, but otherwise
Oh, those are back up there.
Yeah, things are looking pretty good out there this morning. I would say pretty typical for a Tuesday morning.
Good work.
Now, this week, the trial continues for the alleged ringleader of the largest pandemic fraud case in the country, Amy Bach, one of the 70 accused of bilking $250 million from a federal program meant to feed Minnesota children during the COVID pandemic. Now, prosecutors say Bach oversaw the scheme that was carried out by her nonprofit, Feeding Our Future. 30 other defendants in the case have already pleaded guilty, and prosecutors had harsh words in their opening statements, accusing Bach of breaking the system and saying she, quote, transformed her tiny nonprofit into a money-making engine. The defendants in this case saw an opportunity in crisis, and from the moment they saw it, they went all the way. But her defense attorneys argue she has never cared about making money, saying, you'll see the lies. The Minnesota Department of Education refused to take responsibility for their failures.
A Minnesota state senator's burglary case just got bigger because prosecutors charged Senator Nicole Mitchell with possession of burglary tools. She's accused of breaking into her stepmother's home in Detroit Lakes last April to retrieve some of her late father's personal items. That new charge claims police found a crowbar next to a window. Mitchell has pleaded not guilty. A judge agreed to delay her trial until after the legislative session ends.
Do have a reminder this morning to keep an eye on what your kids are doing online. A Winona man has just been sentenced to 27 years in prison. This is for targeting 60 young girls in an online sextortion scheme. So court documents say that 31-year-old Valentin Silva Quintana used Instagram and Snapchat to threaten, manipulate, and exploit girls between the ages of 9 to 12. And this was all over the world. He used fake identities, often posing as a young girl himself. Earlier this month, he pleaded guilty to child porn and child porn distribution.
Still to come, another update on today's weather and more of this morning's top headlines.
Then many people work from home and they enjoy it, but would you take a pay cut to do it? I'll tell you just how many people say they would take less money so they could work from home.
Food buying restrictions, how your favorite chain grocery stores are reacting to the egg shortages.
romance scams, egg buying limits, and taking a pay cut to work from home. We are looking out for your money this morning. So ahead of Valentine's Day, the federal government is sounding the alarm about a sophisticated online romance scam. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission has launched the Dating or Defrauding Awareness Campaign. According to the agency, fraudsters use fake profiles on dating apps, even wrong number text messages to target possible victims. Scammers would claim to have made a lot of money trading cryptocurrency. Victims are told to convert their dollars to crypto and then send it to a scam website for ways to earn extra money. Federal agency says never trade or give money to people you only know online. Trader Joe's has set a 1 dozen egg limit per day for customers. This is because of the avian flu. Company spokesperson says this will prevent stores or help prevent them from going bare those store shelves. Avian flu resulted in the deaths of more than 40 million egg-laying birds in 2024. Now, the lack of eggs has caused them to be more expensive. It's led to some people to try and buy large amounts of eggs per visit. Department of Agriculture predicts that the cost of eggs will increase another 20% before the end of the year. And there's a new study out of Harvard that puts a monetary value on remote work. Found that 40% of people surveyed would take a pay cut of 5% or more to keep working from home. 9% would take a cut of 20% or more to avoid going into the office. Highest share of workers willing to take that salary cut were people who had worked remotely before the pandemic, changed jobs during the pandemic, or had a college degree. Let's head outside and take a live look. Let's see, where are we headed this morning? We are over in St. Paul, looking at Minneapolis, and that might look a little hazy out there, but it is sunny outside and it is cold. Let's check in with next weather meteorologist Joseph Dames.
Well, here we are on a Tuesday morning, and boy, is it a cold one. Good morning to everybody. Temperatures sub-zero, below zero through the morning hours till probably early afternoon. And this is our high temperature for today, just 3 degrees. Sunshine, though, dry, nothing to worry about. Just make sure you're ready for some cold air when you're heading out this afternoon. The average high is now 27 degrees here, 22 for Grand Rapids. We won't see that type of warmth until Friday. Have a good day.
You too, Joseph. Take a look now at your next drive. It's pretty typical for a Tuesday morning at this time. The spots that are usually busy are busy out there. A couple of exclamation points out there, nothing huge. Let's take you out to Fridley once again. You can see 694. This is right near East River Road. It's westbound. It's a stalled vehicle, so it's just slowing down traffic in this spot. This is already a busy spot, so hopefully they can get that cleared out and have traffic moving along, but just consider it a pretty normal, a busy but normal Tuesday morning commute. And as always, we will continue to keep you up to date on the very latest news and weather developments all day here on the stream, including costs to courts. Today in St. Paul, the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals will hear arguments in a lawsuit against a city police officer. So Hamdi Mohammed says that she wants to hold St. Paul officer Heather Weicker accountable for violating her constitutional rights. According to the lawsuit, Weicker made up evidence against Mohammed to arrest and imprison her. Now, back in 2011, she implicated 3 teenage girls, including Hamdi, in a human trafficking investigation. Now, Hamdi was imprisoned for nearly 2 years before the charges were dropped. Well, now representatives from the Institute for Justice say that she is fighting to hold officers accountable. Now, Weicker has argued she was acting as a federal officer and because of that has absolute immunity. That hearing will decide if Hamdi can proceed with her lawsuit. Also today, a plea hearing for a volleyball coach who's accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a 15-year-old student. 32-year-old Kang Chath taught at Como High School in St. Paul. Criminal complaint says that the young girl reported him after his text to her progressed into criminal sexual conduct. School district confirmed Cha's employment was terminated. Now, according to that complaint, Cha has already admitted to everything and faces 30 years in prison if he's convicted. We'll be back with more news headlines that's coming up after a quick break.
watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Good Tuesday morning, 7:56. Joseph Live here next with a forecast coming up in just a minute. But first, happening today, inclusion on the court. There's an annual basketball tournament set to showcase the talents of athletes of all abilities. It's called the 2025 Unified Champion Schools State Basketball Tourney. Be held at Target Center. Students from 8 different high schools across the state will come together to compete for that state title. Let's take a look now at your next drive. We're talking about a busy Tuesday morning, but a pretty typical one here. Those spots that normally get busy are doing just that. Do want to take you down to cross down here. This is right near the Minneapolis-Richfield border. 62 eastbound. You can see a crash over there right at Highway 77. We know this is a busy stretch of road, so if you're making your way eastbound, might need a couple of extra minutes in that spot, but otherwise, a lot of people out there on the roads, and it's very cold. Joseph?
Yeah, you don't want to get caught outside like that because of these temperatures right now. It's 9 below coming out of MSP this morning. A lot of sunshine. It looks nice, but it will be cold, and it's going to be cold all day, all right? This is going to be the coldest one probably collectively for the week, all right? By 11 a.m., 3 below. It's probably going to feel like it is about 10 to 15 below for most of the morning. This afternoon, the high is going to be 3. The average high is 27. Not even close to that for today. Overnight, 5 below. Tomorrow, we get up to 10, but we have a chance for some snowfall, which I'll break down coming up at 8 a.m. at CBS News Minnesota.
WCCO Mornings, tariff troubles, how President Trump's orders on steel and platinum could impact your bottom line.
Then how health funding cuts will impact cancer patients in Minnesota and across the country.
Plus, the new bill getting bipartisan support to ban phones for your kids in schools.
And later, before a D1 women's basketball commit heads off to college, she is making history at her Twin Cities high school. Meet the Eden Prairie native in this week's Women in Sports. Good morning. Welcome to WCCO Mornings. We're live right here on our free streaming channel each weekday on CBS News Minnesota. I'm AJ Hilton.
And I'm Heather Brown. We do want to get straight to your top headlines. We begin this morning with cuts to billions of dollars in federal funding for medical research now on hold.
That's after attorneys general from 22 states, including Minnesota and Wisconsin, sued the Trump administration. Our Pauline Lee joins us from the live desk with the cuts they could have here in Minnesota.
This is a major impact. This is the type of funding that leads to scientific breakthroughs like treatments for all kinds of cancers and development of the MRI. And a number of institutions here would be impacted, including the University of Minnesota. So let's show you the money here back in 2023, which is the last year the data was publicly available. U of M Medical School received more than $296 million in NIH awards. That's the 24th highest total in the nation. Now, of that money, about 26.7% or $80 million or so went to indirect costs. That's for things like facilities funding and administrative expenses. Now, this new directive from the NIH would cap the amount of funding for indirect costs at 15%. So you take that $80 million and cut it by almost half. In a statement to the U community, President Rebecca Cunningham warned of the serious consequences these cuts could have, saying the federal government's recent notice calling for a 15% indirect cost cut on all new awards from the National Institutes of Health is a direct attack on our ability to advance the university's public service mission, and it has created fear and uncertainty across our community. Not just the U of M that would be impacted here. We're talking about Mayo Clinic also getting funding from NIH, and then so does the Hennepin Healthcare Research Institute. The NIH said as a whole, all of these cuts would save the federal government more than $4 billion a year. So the next hearing on this lawsuit, by the way, set for February 21st. Even though we're talking about indirect costs, I mean, those are costs to keep the lights on, for the research to keep going. So it could have a significant impact.
All right. Pauline, thank you.
We are following some breaking news this morning. A mobile home is badly burned at a fire at a mobile home park in Corcoran. This is video from the scene this morning. This is along Maple Hill Road at the Maple Hill Estates. A couple of things we're still working to find out. The extent of the damage, if anyone was hurt or displaced. Of course, we'll bring you that information as soon as we get it.
Now, house fires have killed 4 people over the past few days here in Minnesota. 2 people died in Pine City Sunday night. Earlier in that day, 2 others died in a garage fire in St. Paul's East Side. Investigators say that fire was likely started by a space heater that had tipped over. State fire officials say improper heating is a leading cause of winter fires.
We have frigid temperatures all week. And so everyone is going to be thinking of, how do I stay warm where I live? Just give pause and think, like, where is that space heater? Where is my furnace? What condition are these things in? If you have a fireplace, what's stored around your fireplace?
So for space heaters, the best things the experts say to do, plug it into the wall and leave it on a hard surface. Give it at least 3 feet of space and don't leave it on when you're not home. Lawmakers are considering a ban that would remove cell phones from all schools in Minnesota.
This is a Senate proposal. It would ban all phones on school grounds for kids in K through 8th grade. It would also ban phones for high school students in the classroom. Esme Murphy was at the first hearing for the bill.
There is mounting evidence that cell phones are taking a serious toll on students' ability to focus in the classroom and their overall mental health.
DFL Senator Alice Mann went around the state holding listening roundtables with students.
We heard stories of kids taking pictures of tests, taking and sending pictures of one another without consent, and sending naked pictures to classmates in group chats.
The senator told the Senate Education Committee one exchange really shocked her.
In one district, when we asked if kids had ever seen a naked picture of a random classmate, the majority of the kids that were at the round table shrugged and said, yeah, like it was no big deal, as our jaws hit the floor.
The proposal to ban cell phones has broad support. DFL Senator Mann, who represents Bloomington and Edina, and GOP Senator Jordan Rasmussen of Fergus Falls are co-sponsors.
For me, it's about making sure that students are able to focus on learning and that we try to mitigate the negative impacts of screen overuse and misuse in the classroom.
Rasmussen says parents and teachers are worried about their kids' education.
We are concerned about the declining test scores that we see across the state, and so we're open to any option available to try to get those test scores up.
Any cell phone ban the legislature passes this year would override the bill that was passed last year, which calls on all Minnesota school districts to enact some kind of cell phone policy by this spring. With photojournalist Mike Dernberger, Esme Murphy, WCCO News, the Capitol.
Important to note, there are many more steps before this bill could become law. The proposed cell phone ban would have exceptions for children with disabilities and other special circumstances.
Let's take a look outside this morning. Your next weather tower is shining blue. It is cold out there, but it is sunny. Usually those two things go hand in hand in the wintertime, and that is the case today, Joseph.
Yeah, that's right. That cold, dry air has moved on in. High pressure is in place, so we just can't really get much forming when it's just so cold and dry like this. We need some changes. We need a system to move on in, and we have nothing. All right, so it's just going to be cold as we're heading out the door this morning. Cold weather alerts, cold weather advisories spanning across the area. I count there's about 19 counties here. It does include western Wisconsin all the way down to the southeast to I-90, where we don't have any cold weather alerts in place, but it's still going to be dangerously cold with wind chills pushing about 20 to 25 below this morning. The rest of the state could get about 30 below to maybe even 40 below in some areas. Okay, I think that's probably more so going to be a Thursday morning thing, but this morning it is cold. Frostbite, 10 minutes or less in all these counties right here, and in the counties where we do not have the advisory, 10 to 30 minutes, okay? And I'm leaning more so about that 20-minute range right there in the middle. Temperatures right now when you're heading out the door, it's 6 below in the Twin Cities, so we've warmed up some. 26 coming out of Hinckley, 15 below for St. Cloud, and 21 degrees below zero coming out of Alexandria this morning. I'm sorry, yeah, these are tough. These are tough ones, but you factor in the wind, it's even worse. Feels more like 36 below coming out of Alexandria. That's why you need the gloves. Limit your time outdoors if you can this morning. If you do have to spend time outdoors, just make sure you're ready for it, you have the right gear, and yeah, just do what you can to stay warm. The worst part about this is going to probably be until about 10 a.m. All right, so wind chills again, Alexandria to Bemidji, right there in the mid-30s. We just saw 36 below. This afternoon, you pick a time, 2 p.m. We'll go to the Twin Cities metro area. It's still going to be about 10 below. Hudson, some improvements there, about 6 below. But overall, still very, very cold this afternoon. All right, you can see the clear skies, but there's some cloud coverage down to the south. Most of the clouds, though, that are associated with any sort of moisture are down to the south and southeast, okay? So for now, it just kind of looks like that, and it'll probably look like that until probably about lunchtime today. All right, 3 degrees will go for the high today. It feels like 9 below at that point in time. We're going to have at least a bit of a breeze out there. 2 for Grand Rapids for the high today. Mankato showing off with a high of 7 degrees this afternoon. We know we got a big snow event there on Saturday. We had anywhere from about 3 to 7 inches around the area. On the lower side there at MSP at 3.3 inches, but we are above average for the month. I have 2 chances for snow coming up. One will arrive tomorrow, the next one on Valentine's Day. If you have plans on Friday, I think you'll want to know about the snow, so we'll break that down coming up at 8:30.
Here for the Joseph saying the Mankato showing off with 7 degrees. It's a high temperature showing off this morning. All right, Joseph, thank you. For the most part, your next drive looks okay this morning. We do need to take you out to Maple Grove because initially we got reports of a vehicle on fire. This is going to be on 610. This is 610 westbound at Revere Lane. So we made some calls to MnDOT. MnDOT telling us that this is actually not a vehicle on fire, just having some maintenance issues. Looks like this is off to the shoulder now. The good news, we thought that there would be a backup with this crash going back to 169, but take a look at the next camera back. It looks like it's backed up a little bit here, but from this vantage point further on 610, you can see it's not terrible. So just give yourself a little bit of extra time, but otherwise very isolated this morning. No major issues throughout the metro.
President Donald Trump has set new tariffs on metal imports into the U.S.
It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions, and that's all countries, no matter where it comes from.
So that was moments just after the president had signed the new executive order last night. That 25% tax will specifically target steel and aluminum imports, and that could drive up prices for things like cars.
Down the line, we are going to see that tariffs will impact consumers as we essentially have to pay the cost of those taxes that those companies or those importers are paying.
So while Minnesota factories could also feel the increased costs, the tariffs could help some mining companies in Minnesota. Meanwhile, retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods are already kicking in, new overnight. The European Union said that the U.S. tariffs, quote, will not go unanswered. China has placed a tax of up to 15% on coal, liquefied natural gas, and crude oil.
The president today will host Jordan's King Abdullah. Now, the timing is interesting because President Trump recently doubled down on his proposal to take over Gaza and permanently relocate millions of Palestinians to neighboring countries, including Jordan. Trump has suggested he may cut off aid to countries that refuse to take in more Palestinians. VP J.D. Vance, meanwhile, is in Paris, France right now. He's there for a summit on artificial intelligence. The Trump administration is also being sued over Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency and its plans to cut government spending. A federal employees union is trying to block the dismantling of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and access to their files by Musk's agency. Meanwhile, a federal judge has extended the pause on the government's deferred resignations buyout program. That's the resignation offer that gave 2 million federal workers the option to take a buyout.
And new this morning, the Justice Department is directing prosecutors to drop federal corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Last year, Adams pleaded not guilty to receiving benefits like trips from Turkish leaders and pressuring the fire department to grant permits to those leaders in exchange. Now, he was supposed to go on trial this spring as the first prosecution case brought up against a sitting mayor in New York City. The DOJ says that the case should be dropped because of the publicity and because the case is hurting efforts to obey Trump's recent immigration orders. Now, just last month, attorneys described Adams' efforts to have the case dropped as evidence of his guilt. So Target Center is playing host to a unique basketball tournament.
We're going to tell you how it's bringing together athletes of all abilities to compete for a state championship.
And still ahead, we will meet a high school girls hoop star, see how this Eden Prairie senior is making history and her plans for the future.
Before a D1 women's basketball commit heads off to college, she's making history at her own Twin Cities high school. And this week's Women in Sports, Mariel Mose introduces us to a star on the court.
The Eden Prairie Eagles are locking in as their regular season wraps up, hoping to return to the state tournament for the first time in 2 years. One of the players in their arsenal that will help them get there.
Nice pass.
Tori Schlegel.
Yeah, she is one of the best to ever put on the uniform.
In her 8 years as head coach, Ellen Weesey saw Tori's talent as far back as 5th grade.
I've been watching her all those years, and I knew right from the beginning that she was special. And the specialness comes not only from her talent, but her competitiveness, her humility, her dedication.
Today, Tori is proving her worth in points, 1,466 points to be exact. She hit that milestone earlier this season in a game against Rosemount, becoming the all-time leading scorer in program history for Eden Prairie girls basketball, a record held for over a decade.
I didn't find out until after the game had happened. My mom came up to me and was like, "You broke the record." And I was like, I started crying, actually. I was very excited.
Tori also found a way to score all these points while still remaining unselfish on the court.
I think shooting the ball is incredibly important to get the best shot possible. I think letting the game come to you also has helped me.
The senior guard is committed to the University of South Dakota next year.
South Dakota has such an incredible fan base. There's not professional sports in South Dakota, so everyone comes out and supports the women's basketball team.
But first, she has unfinished business with the Eagles.
We lost last year in the section final by 2. It was kind of heartbreaking. So this year, we are like 100% focused on getting back to state.
In Eden Prairie, Mariel Mose, WCCO Sports.
That team is on a mission. A reminder, you can see more great coverage of Women in Sports with Mariel every Monday and Friday night right here on CBS News Minnesota. Let's stick with sports and basketball for a second because the Minnesota Timberwolves team ownership, it is now set to change hands. The deal will go before the Board of Governors for approval, and if they have the financing, this should be a done deal. This transaction, it has been less than harmonious. So Glenn Taylor, he extended deadlines for payments. The ruling was 2-1 in favor of Mark Laurie and Alex Rodriguez with 3 area judges presiding. So if this is the end for Glenn Taylor, he recently told our Mike Max he understands the legacy he leaves behind.
Mostly what people say to me, Glenn, we really appreciate that you're the guy that saved the Timberwolves for Minnesota. And that won't change. I think people will still look at it as that Glenn Taylor was the guy who saved them for Minnesota. And even though I don't have all the ownership anymore, I still think that they'll understand that's why the Timberwolves are here.
All right, there you have it. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But again, it'll be up to the Board of Governors to approve that final sale. Sticking with basketball, something happening today, inclusion on the court. We're talking about a yearly basketball tournament. It's set to showcase the talents of athletes of all abilities. This is the 2025 Unified Champion School State Basketball Tournament taking place at Target Center. Students from 8 high schools across the state all coming together to compete for a state title. And let's check in with Mike Max for a look at what else is coming up in sports.
Minnesota Vikings may not have played in the Super Bowl, but one player made a big impression for kids at the Ronald McDonald House. Brian Asamoah stopped by to pay a visit, to make some malts and shakes for the kids and to remind them what they do have.
Whatever they're going through is much more hard than what I'm going through in life. So this is a place to be, grateful. Extend my gratitude to them too, because they're kids and they're fighting some life-threatening things. But I'm happy to be here and tell them that they can push through whatever they go through.
Much more coming up tonight at 6 and 10 on WCCO TV, including an extended profile on Gabe Stevenson as he returns to the mat for the Minnesota Gophers. That's tonight at 10. Yeah, for CBS News Minnesota This Morning, I'm Mike Max, and that is your morning look at sports.
Maxie, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you. Still to come this morning, we travel to the far north where communities relying on a certain Arctic giant are facing change. We're talking about polar bears that need ice to thrive, what locals living along Hudson Bay are noticing about their furry neighbors. And a little bit later, the new charges State Senator Nicole Mitchell faces after being accused of breaking into her own stepmother's home. It's all coming up. Stay with us.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pauline Lee. Joseph Dames will have your next weather forecast in just a minute. But first, in St. Paul, the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals will hear arguments in a lawsuit against a city police officer today. Hamdi Mohammed says she wants to hold St. Paul officer Heather Weicker accountable for violating her constitutional rights. According to the lawsuit, Weicker made up evidence against Mohammed to arrest and imprison her. Back in 2011, she implicated 3 teenage girls, including Hamdi, in a human trafficking investigation. Hamdi was imprisoned for nearly 2 years before charges were dropped. Now represented by the Institute for Justice, she says she is fighting to hold officers accountable. Now, Weicker argues that she was acting as a federal officer, and because of that, she has absolute immunity. The hearing will decide if Hamdi can proceed with her lawsuit. Also today, a plea hearing for a volleyball coach accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a 15-year-old student. 32-year-old Kang Cha taught at Como High School in St. Paul. Criminal complaint says the young girl reported him after his text to her progressed into criminal sexual conduct. The school district confirmed Cha's employment was terminated. According to the complaint, Cha has already admitted to everything. He faces 30 years in prison if convicted. Let's check out your next drive this morning, because for the most part, we're doing pretty well. Just your average slowdowns for your Tuesday morning, but we are seeing some trouble spots here across the metro here. One in particular, actually backing up traffic just a little bit. This is just outside of downtown St. Paul here. You're looking at 35 southbound, but it's actually northbound. A couple cars collided, no injuries there, but a lot of debris on the road, so cars are kind of avoiding moving over a lane to avoid that debris. So just a heads up if you're heading that way. Let's get a check for our forecast now with meteorologist Joseph Dames.
Hey, good morning to you, Pauline. You have a lot of clear skies going on this morning, and with the clear skies, no clouds act like a blanket, and temperatures have really dropped off. 7 below the Twin Cities right now. We should get to 0 by the time we get to lunchtime. We're going to keep those temperatures right around 3 degrees for the high today. Warmer weather coming up, though.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Next on WCCO Mornings, fighting fraud. We'll tell you about the 3 bills being discussed today in the House. Then how the GOP-led State House could impact health care for undocumented immigrants and the cost of baby products. Plus the harsh words from prosecutors in the Feeding Our Future fraud trial and the response from the defense during opening statements. And later, they're the symbol of all things Arctic. Polar bears are having to adapt to a changing world. How one community is evolving with them to keep pace with climate change. That's a story you're not going to want to miss there. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to WCCO Mornings, streaming live on CBS News Minnesota. I'm Pauline Lee. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get straight to your top headlines this morning, because fighting fraud will be front and center for lawmakers at the Minnesota State Capitol today. They'll be taking up a trio of GOP-backed bills aimed at cracking down on criminals stealing hundreds of millions of your taxpayer dollars. Now, we first told you about these proposals weeks ago, but now that the House is in order, a proper committee can hear them. Here's a refresher on those proposed bills. Now, one of the bills would create a stricter reporting requirement if state agencies' employees suspect fraud. Another proposal would establish a new annual report from the Office of Legislative Auditor detailing if agencies have followed the OLA's recommendations to boost internal controls and, of course, help prevent the fraud. Third proposal would boost protections for whistleblowers, among other things, who exposed fraud. Now, the House State Government Committee started taking up these bills about 15 minutes ago at 8:15 this morning. Later this afternoon at about 12:30, a Senate panel will also hear a bipartisan proposal to establish a new Office of Inspector General. That's going to be like a watchdog for state agencies. And also happening at 12:30, the Senate GOP is also expected to share more details about their package of proposals to help tackle the issue. Now, meanwhile, the Minnesota State Senator's burglary case, just got bigger. Prosecutors charged Senator Nicole Mitchell with possession of burglary tools. She's accused of breaking into her stepmother's home in Detroit Lakes last April to retrieve some of her late father's personal items. Now, the new charge claims police found a crowbar next to the window. Mitchell has pleaded not guilty. A judge agreed to delay her trial until after this legislative session ends. And sticking with politics now for a second, one of the top GOP's priorities in the Minnesota House is cutting services for undocumented immigrants. Now, this bill lawmakers are discussing would prohibit them from being on Minnesota Care. It would also keep them from participating in the North Star Promise program that provides free college tuition for low-income families. A tax committee is meeting today to help make baby products cheaper for Minnesotans. They want to expand which baby products are exempt from sales tax. So right now, it's just diapers, breast pumps, and pacifiers that are exempt. They're discussing on adding every other everyday products like baby wipes, cribs, changing tables, and strollers, and car seats as well. This week, the trial continues for the alleged ringleader of the largest pandemic fraud case in the country. Amy Bach is one of 70 accused of bilking $250 million from a federal program meant to feed Minnesota children during the COVID pandemic. Now, prosecutors say Bach oversaw the scheme carried out by her nonprofit Feeding Our Future. 30 other defendants in the case have already pleaded guilty. Well, prosecutors had some harsh words in their opening statements accusing Bach of breaking the system and saying that she, quote, transformed her tiny nonprofit into a money-making engine. The defendants in this case saw the opportunity in crisis. From the moment they saw it, they went all the way. Well, her defense attorney argued that she never cared about making money, saying, "You'll see the lies." The Minnesota Department of Education refused to take responsibility for their failures. From costs to courts. Today, St. Paul, the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, will be hearing arguments about a lawsuit against a city police officer. Hamdi Mohammed said that she wants to hold St. Paul officer Heather Weicker accountable for violating her constitutional rights. According to the lawsuit, Weicker made up evidence against Mohammed to arrest and imprison her. Back in 2011, she implicated 3 teenage girls, including Hamdi, in a human trafficking investigation. Hamdi was imprisoned for nearly 2 years before charges were dropped. Now represented by the Institute for Justice, she says she is fighting to hold officers accountable. Weicker argues that she was acting as a federal officer, and because of that, she has absolute immunity. The hearing will decide if Hamdi can proceed with her lawsuit. Also happening today, a plea hearing for a volleyball coach accused of having inappropriate relationships with a 15-year-old student. 32-year-old Kang Cha taught at Como High School in St. Paul. Criminal complaint says the young girl reported him after his texts to her were had progressed into criminal sexual conduct. The school district confirmed Cha's employment was terminated. According to the complaint, Cha has already admitted to everything. He faces 30 years in prison if convicted. Well, let's take a live look outside, shall we? Just a few wispy clouds out there, but plenty of sunshine over downtown Minneapolis. Definitely a cold start to your day, and it's just going to stay cold for a really long time. So let's check in with next weather meteorologist Joseph Dames. Joseph, I mean, I suppose it's still winter.
It's still winter, but it was just January 30th, Pauline, where we hit 52 degrees. I don't know if you remember when we topped that record.
Why did you have to bring that up, man?
I know. It just shows you the ups and downs of our winter here in Minnesota, but we are now in a stretch and a pretty good time frame here where we're probably going to be sitting in some very cold air for some length. All right, so today, you're waking up to sub-zero temperatures, but it could be anywhere from maybe about 5 to 10 below to some locations this morning that are sitting at 20 to 25 below with the air temperature, all right? So it is going to range in that kind of mark, about 20 degrees there. Lakeville, Dan's location, 5 below. Randy, Geneva coming in about 7 below this morning. Wind chill tracker, it's about 20 below around the Twin Cities. It will improve some for Wednesday. Not much, though. Still about 0 to 10 below for most of our Wednesday before we slide right back down Thursday morning into some pretty cold temperatures. So I'm watching for some more cold alerts, cold weather alerts as we go into probably Thursday. Once we get through today, I think we'll put a pause on it, and then we'll probably get back to some cold weather alerts on our Thursday. So you may be dreaming of some warmer days, and we're springing forward in 26 days, less than a month. Okay, that's going to help us out with some more daylight as well. St. Patrick's Day, 34 days. We know sometimes in March, we could get some weather pushing 60, upper 50s, maybe even 70s. We had that recently. Easter's not too far away, but as far as the near future, Valentine's Day, going to be cold. President's Day early next week, also going to be on the cooler side. All right, so I have some winter weather alerts to the south of us, but we have one winter storm that's really going strong right now through Kentucky, southern portions of Ohio, West Virginia, pushing into Maryland, Virginia, northern portions of even North Carolina there, seeing some snow. You saw the warnings just to the south of us. In fact, let me show you those again. I'm going to try to go back and show you what was going on there. As I push us into the next graphic, it'll show us what's going on, and that's going to be all the alerts just to the south of us. Here they are. All right, so this is the winter storm warning, winter weather advisory. That's for the system that's going to arrive tomorrow. For us, low chance that we really tap into it, but the southeast corner will. We have a better shot for some snowfall on Friday with our system that will arrive then. For now, today we're dry, but you'll see the clouds increasing. You'll start to notice maybe some snowfall early Wednesday morning, more so mid-morning for areas along the I-90 corridor. About 35 into the east is the most likely location, so this kind of quadrant of the state. And that will continue through about early afternoon Wednesday before it departs. So out west, you're good. Around here, we're fine, and that goes for up north as well. Thursday is dry, it is cold, and we will not see the snowfall on Thursday. Thursday is going to feel very similar to today's forecast. But once we get into Friday, then we'll start seeing some snowfall around here. You can see about an inch for that system on Wednesday. Let's talk about the timing of the system on Friday, because I'm sure you have some plans. All right, I know it's just Valentine's Day, but if you have reservations, I know they're probably booked up all over the place. But if you're going to be out and about on Friday, get ready for some snow. I think that could start in the afternoon, carrying through the evening hours, and then it kind of cruises out of here as we go into late Friday night. More so of a western Wisconsin event here, but it will bring in probably some snow for us around the Twin Cities, some of the counties up to the north, down to the southeast. An inch, maybe. But enough to probably make the road slick, and we know that even a little bit of snowfall around here can really cause some problems. So just know there's probably going to be some snow on Friday, and you might need a little extra time to get to where you need to go. All right, 18 degrees on Saturday. Sunday, 5. Temperatures back below 0. Pauline, Monday, 8 degrees. The coldest morning is probably going to be Wednesday night into Thursday, where we could potentially see 30 below wind chills. Not a great week for warmth Pauline, but it should be overall pretty quiet week for everybody to get around.
I still don't like your forecast, Joseph. I don't like it.
Maybe we could work out some sort of deal.
Okay. Sounds
We'll
good.
see.
All right, we'll chat.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. All right, let's check out your next drive right now, because for the most part, we're doing pretty okay, except for this one incident here. This is heading, if you're on your way to St. Paul, just a heads up for you. So this is 35, you're looking south, but the crash is in the northbound lanes. Just a couple of cars, but you can see emergency vehicles are trying to push the cars over to the side here just to get by. Looks like a tow truck has just arrived, so that is good news if you're headed that way, but still, it's causing some backups here. In fact, let's check out the backups. 28 minutes in climbing if you're going from Eagan to St. Paul here. It's just a long stretch there. A lot of backups there. But for the most part across the metro, not too bad for your Tuesday morning. Just a few spots. For the most part, all of the other exclamation points are off to the side, so it's not necessarily impacting your traffic as you head out the door this morning. Well, hey, exciting news for you rock fans out there. Minnesota State Fair just announced on social media that Def Leppard will be performing at the Grandstand. So the concert going to be happening Tuesday, August 26th. Tickets go on sale this Friday. Prices, they are anywhere from $75 all the way up to $300 a seat. Well, as we celebrate Black History Month, we are highlighting some businesses in the metro as well. One of them is Flavor Cafe in St. Paul. Our Shayla Reeves was there this morning to check in with the owner. Take a look.
This is more than just a cafe. This is a place where people are building connection, relationships, and young people are getting some experience, real on-the-job experience that they can take beyond their time here. I'm here with Shawnee Grigsby, the owner of Flavor Cafe. Really, for you, it's your first journey into entrepreneurship, but it's a vision you've had for a long time. When you look at where you started and you look at where you are, what do you feel when you come here?
I would say the first thing that I feel is home. As I thought about the space that I wanted to create, I wanted to make sure it was a place that I could feel home in every day. And so that's the first thing that I feel. And the other thing I feel is joy. And I feel that by way of the customers that I share the space with, so the community that we've built, as well as my staff that I share the space with. A lot of the things that we do around mentoring and coaching is for if this is your first time job, or if this is you're just trying to figure out what it is that you want to do after you graduate high school. So the skills that we're learning are time management, how to show up professionally, how to have effective and healthy conversations. So even when it comes to resignation, how do you draft a formal statement to submit to your supervisor? Not a text message, but like a thoughtful email that like clearly, you know, communicates what it is that you are, what you're doing.
What you want to do, right. It's really a place where you care about people. It's people-centered.
Very cool. Go check it out. Now, coming up, another update on weather, plus more of this morning's top headlines. Then, after the break, polar bears. Their lifestyle habits, they are having to change as the Arctic continues to warm and melt away. How communities who rely on the bears are adjusting to life without the ice. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We are thrilled to bring you a look at Erin Hassanzadeh's first report from a special project she's working on. This fall, she traveled up to polar bear capital of the world. That's located in Churchill, Manitoba, up on the Hudson Bay. It's on the edge of the Arctic, and it's home to the most studied and photographed polar bears on the planet. But it's also a community on the front lines of climate change. As Erin will tell you, she saw firsthand the costs of a warming Arctic and the lifestyle local families are fighting to protect.
For as long as he can remember,
front left is Momo, front right is Clegan. I've always been the kid with dogs.
life for Wyatt Daly has been gearing up and getting out.
Let's go now. Come on. I've always known how to run dogs. Come on, big boy. It's something that I've just done forever. It's just very healing.
A lifestyle learned from his dad, Dave, known in Churchill as the Big Dog.
I grew up in Churchill in the 60s and the 70s, and the town was surrounded by dog teams.
On by.
I don't feel a connection to the land like I do when I'm with my sled dogs out on the land.
And those journeys out on the edge of the Arctic expose what's becoming clear. Winter isn't what it used to be.
The whole north is changing. That's the biggest thing. Like, you can't count on anything anymore.
And that's a problem for the town's famous polar bears. The chance to get this close draws thousands of visitors from around the world to this tiny town of fewer than 900. Tourists spent more than $85 million in the province in 2023, creating 1,400 jobs.
We have a mom with a 2-year-old.
But these local treasures are in trouble. Churchill's bear population has been cut in half in 40 years. Scientists say climate change is melting their homes on the ice, and there's no sign we're cutting enough planet warming emissions to stop it.
It is a scary thought to think that the polar bears may not be here one day.
Let's walk this way. Come.
If that happens, it would be a hit to the economy, yes, but also a fracture in the identity of life in the north. Life the Dalys are fighting to protect for the next generation.
To do what we do together, it's really, really special. On by.
The planet Earth is a living being, and we're the ones that are treading on it, and we're the ones that are changing everything.
Come on, Noah. Let's go, buddy.
As gatekeepers in the north, we need to really keep an eye out.
Very neat indeed. A lot more stories coming from Erin in the future, so be on the lookout. All right, let's switch gears here. We're taking a live look here up north near International Falls, where it is a cool -27 degrees. Cool is an understatement, I know. It's also cold down here in the Twin Cities, so do bundle up as you head out the door. Let's get a check of our forecast now with meteorologist Joseph Dames.
Well, here we are on a Tuesday morning, and boy, is it a cold one. Good morning to everybody. Temperatures sub-zero, below zero through the morning hours till probably early afternoon. And this is our high temperature for today, just 3 degrees. Sunshine, though, dry, nothing to worry about. Just make sure you're ready for some cold air when you're heading out this afternoon. The average high is now 27 degrees here, 22 for Grand Rapids. We won't see that type of warmth until Friday. Have a good day.
All right, Joseph, thanks. And now let's take a look at your next weather lens and see what's happening in your neck of the woods. Well, Martha from Chanhassen sent us this video here. Oh, look at that. I love the slow-mo videos. Look at those. Like, did you see that one? The snowflakes? She says they look like hearts. I just saw one that looked like a heart. I totally agree. Great video there. Thank you. And Maggie the Snow Dog says, hello, everyone. Jean took this photo here from Plymouth. Also, this one here sent in from Osage. All of that fresh powder making for a great photo. Thank you so much, everyone, for sending all of those pictures. We love to see them. If you, by the way, see news or weather in your neighborhood, do share your videos and your pictures with us anytime. You can find us at WCCO.com/photos. As always, we'll continue to keep you up to date on the latest news and weather developments all day right here on the stream. Coming up today on mid-morning at 9, we're checking out some treats for your beloved pets for this Valentine's Day, and also want to make sure to avoid. You're not going to want to miss that story either. Thank you so much for joining us today on the stream. We'll be back with more news and weather headlines coming up after a quick break.